All right, let's talk some high school football. Week 1 is upon us, and there are games on the lower conference divisions, beginning with conferences 1A, 2A, and 3A starting this. Actually, there's games tonight throughout the state, a couple games. I think there might be 3 games that are being played tonight. Most of the teams will commence on Friday night, and we are pleased to be joined in studio by Jeff Pichotta from AZ Sports Network, known as JP, the Wildman. And first of all, JP, how'd you get the Wildman as that nickname there?
My son.
He's like, Dad, you're just a wild man.
It's kind of completely opposite. So some of the people from high school, they say, you weren't really the wild man.
Well, you've already made a friend here in the studio in our guy Dragon Ball, because you showed up wearing a Steelers hat. If I had known you were going to come in here wearing a Steelers hat, I might have told you not to come, considering I'm from Cleveland.
Don't worry. He's been saying that to me since we worked in TV. You don't got to worry about that. That's an empty threat.
What are you doing, man? Holy mackerel. And you're a Colorado Buffs fan. We just got done talking about Colorado, and you're just stoked about Deion Sanders.
Oh yeah. I've been waiting. I mean, this is like, here's the thing. They win 2 games, they doubled their wins. So we're all good to go.
Okay, 2 wins. That's I don't know if I think he needs to win at least 3 to keep the Wolves off of him. But 3. I would say at least 3. 2 might not make a lot of folks happy there, but as long as the stadium is packed, I'm sure the folks in administration will love that. All right, AZ Sports Network. Tell us about this website. How long you guys have been covering lower conference sports here in the state of Arizona?
Sure. Since 2006, we just decided we wanted to start covering sports, and what we were going to start broadcasting. And really, Cox was the only one doing video broadcasting at the time. And we went to the big schools like South Point and everybody, and they were like, "Who are you?" And so nobody really wanted us around. And so we said, you know what, let's go to the small schools. And the first one we went to was Benson. And I tell you what, it was a blast. We would have shows that were from there. They would call us after a game from the bus, going home, and, we covered them. And so that's where it all started. We just really started in the spring of 2006 with the softball and the baseball. And from there, it just went.
Well, let's talk about Benson, because we're going to be there Friday night for the season opener against Bisbee. I believe this will be the 56th meeting between these 2 schools. Benson and Bisbee, you've got them kind of in your rankings ranked right behind each other. I believe Benson at number 11 this season. They're going back down to 2A after they were up at 3A for a number of years, last couple of years, which, I mean, I'm not even going to get into this whole switching of the conferences every couple of years because I'm from Ohio, and we would never do anything like that in Ohio. But apparently that's the norm out here in Arizona, and I've been here 16 years. I still can't get used to it. But Benson going back to 2A, that's got to be a great thing for them because they were one of the dominant teams in the state in 2A for years under Chris Dieterman.
Yeah, that was the team that you just didn't want to face. I mean, they were so physical. And so, of course, when they got moved up, new coach coming in, they throw the ball a lot more now. That's pretty much their MO right now. So where before it was more of a running team.
Oh, yeah,
power.
They would run the ball, I mean, like 400 or 500 yards a game.
Yeah.
Yeah, under Dieterman.
Right. But they have a good quarterback, Crockett.
Crockett.
Yeah.
Yeah, what do you know about him? And we've heard about him, and I've been told he's the guy to watch Friday night.
Yeah, he's a stud. I mean, he has a real strong arm, and they're going to rely on him to really carry this team this year. And the good thing is, like you said, they dropped down to 2A, and this is a rival game. I know that their rival game is normally with Wilcox, but they, Bisbee and Benson, they're going to go at it. So, and of course, Bisbee has a new coach, Sean Hawley, who's up in Holbrook. So what you're going to see in this game is a lot of throwing because Coach Hawley likes to do the same thing. He likes to go spread. He'll run the ball, but most of it, you're going to see a lot of passing this week.
Well, you mentioned, I was telling the guys in the early segment, I think, when I was working in TV, Benson would be about as far as I would normally go to do any types of high school coverage. But I did get a chance last year to go down to Wilcox for the first time. And, man, is that an impressive outfit down there. They had such a great team last year, and I really enjoyed getting a chance to talk to Eric Harmelson, former U of A Wildcat, and just getting a sense of that community and that program and really how much they love football down there. And they've got the coolest mural I've ever seen in a locker room, the mural of the cowboy and the cowgirl kind of up there on the wall. That was one of the coolest things I think I'd ever seen in a high school locker room.
Yeah, they love their football. I mean, going way back, and they're another physical team. They lost a lot. I mean, they had 2 running backs last year.
Yeah, Christian Pando was one of those guys.
And so they're gone, but still the same power. I've talked to people that scrimmaged against them, and they have a lot of the line coming back. So they have a lot of pieces, and guys have to step up, though, this year. But we have them, I think, at number 4 because, once again, but they get ALA this weekend, Arizona Lutheran Academy.
Okay.
Now, remember, they were a power also in 2A, and they got bumped up. They went up there. They had some injuries. They didn't lose or they didn't win very many games. And so they put in a new rule that if you stayed at the bottom third after you moved up, you got to come back down. So now you have ALA, who is a power. They're number 3 in our rankings right now, and they're back down, and they have 2 stud running backs coming back. So that's probably the biggest game this weekend as far as at the 2A level is between ALA and Wilcox. That's a number 3 and number 4 game going on.
Now,
nothing worse than having a team that's trying to prove themselves, right? That's the worst thing you can face off against.
Now, we don't have a lot of 1A teams, obviously. St. David is probably the most successful 1A team that we pay a lot of attention to. You've got them down a little bit. They're generally pretty highly ranked club. You've got them at number 8, it looks like, as a sleeper team. Why is a sleeper team this year for St. David?
The reason is because they were like title heavy last year. They expected to win last year. And of course they lost to Mogollon, but they lost everybody, kitchen sink included. I mean, they are just, it's a rebuild, but it is St. David. So that's why it's a sleeper. We're going to see how they start off, and, that's the reason they're a sleeper for us. Normally they're usually in a top 5 team. Coach Davis over there does such a great job. And new quarterback, new receivers. I mean, they graduated tons of top talent last year.
JP the Wildman joining us from AZ Sports Network Conference 3A. All the talk is about Sabino High School. I mean, they've got some skilled players. Ryan McBrayer has done a tremendous job with that program. Cameron Hawkworth leading the way at the quarterback position. The Berryhill brothers are there. But I'll tell you what, I mean, Mason Cade might be one of the most impressive running backs that I've seen. I'm talking 3A, 4A, 5A, 6A. I've not seen too many more powerful backs than Mason Cade here in Southern Arizona.
I agree. And the thing is, because they have so many other weapons and they like to throw the ball around, you don't hear a lot about him. But he's the one that's going to make the difference, in my opinion. If they get into shootouts and need to, run some clock or that power type game, he's going to be key this year. We have them at number 1, and we were saying they were number 1 when the season ended last year. We knew that they were loaded coming back. I mean, that's the key for them is they're going to score a lot. Their defense has to step up and not allow a lot of scoring as well.
What are you expecting from Push Ridge Christian Academy? They've been a solid 3A team pretty much for the last 5 to 7 years. Obviously a state championship team as well in 2A, but they've held their own since the move to 3A.
Yeah, they're going to be really good this year. They have their quarterback coming back, of course, and a lot of people surrounding him. This is a team that, pay attention, we have them high right now. It's because we foresee at the end of the year where they're going to be. And that's why they're higher. Some people now, will drop them a little bit lower, but that's what we do with our preseason. We really look at if a team loses early and we know they're still going to be there, we don't drop them. So you know how normal rankings, if you lose, you get dropped? We don't do that. So like, for instance, this week, there's Thatcher against Paradise Honors. That's our number 2 teams. Whoever loses, they're not going to drop very much in us. We just don't do that because we know what other teams are going to take their place.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? If you can't beat them, you're not going ahead. I don't care if they have 3 losses. It's kind of like in North basketball, during the season. Chinley almost wins state some years, and they have they have a losing record going into the playoffs. But we know they're that good. It's just that they're all playing each other. And, of course, here you have Thatcher, you have Pushers in the South, and they're all playing each other. And so, they're still tough.
Well, iron sharpens iron. So by the time that they really get to the other teams that they're going to face, hey, that knife's already as sharp as they can possibly get at that point.
Exactly.
JP, can you hang around for another segment?
Sure.
All right, we're going to take you over past the top of the hour since we ran a little long with our crosstalk with Colorado Springs. In the next hour, we'll talk more high school football. Want to make sure you get home with your traffic and weather every 20 minutes on the fives. Cricket's got that. You're listening to Wildcats Radio 1290.
From the O'Reilly Chevrolet Traffic Center.
This high school football team currently boasts the nation's longest active win streak at 51 games in a row and won this game last season by a score of 108-0. That's not a joke. 108-0 was the actual score of this game, and the losing team's coach wasn't even mad about it. That's because he knew something that we all should know by now, and that's that no one has been able to stop the Andale Indians of Kansas for a long time. Since Andale alum Dylan Schmidt took over the head coaching position in This high school football team currently boasts the nation's longest active win streak at 51 games in a row and won this game last season by a score of 108-0. That's not a joke. 108-0 was the actual score of this game, and the losing team's coach wasn't even mad about it. That's because he knew something that we all should know by now, and that's that no one has been able to stop the Andale Indians of Kansas for a long time. Since Andale alum Dylan Schmidt took over the head coaching position in 2017, he's gone 74-2, and since 2019, the Indians have gone a perfect 51-0 with 4 consecutive Kansas Class 3A state titles. Not only have they won, they've dominated. In 2022, Andale scored 451 points while giving up just 61. They pitched 8 shutouts in 13 games. They held every opponent below 20 points and won by an average of 30 points per game. Still, they're a ways off from the Kansas State record of 79 consecutive wins set by Smith Center from 2004 to 2009.
Well, Adia Barnes and the Arizona women's basketball team have their full schedule of non-conference play released today. While game times have yet to be announced, we do have dates for those games. Home exhibitions between the Cats and West Texas A&M on October 25th and Point Loma on November 1st. The season opener will be out at Las Cruces, New Mexico, where they'll take on New Mexico State on November 6th. For the rest of those games, be sure to check out ArizonaWildcats.com to see what games you'd like to partake in while we await start times for those contests. Injuries have begun to run rampant around NFL camps. The Titans are hoping to avoid the worst as their young wideout Traylon Burks was departed off the field today with an apparent leg injury during joint practice with the Vikings today. Burks apparently spiked the ball in frustration. He only had 44 yards and 1 touchdown in his rookie campaign last year, and they were hoping for a big year out of him. We'll see how that works out. Another struggling day at the plate for the Yankees. They fall to 500 for the first time since May after they were blanked by the Braves yesterday. Frustration beginning to mount for Aaron Boone, as he said that there's a lot of the same problems over and over again keep showing up.
We're just simply not playing well enough, and that's starts with me and on down. We got to be better. I mean, it's a broken record, right? I feel like we're starting to gain some traction a little bit offensively, and then, after getting a couple early runs on Freed last night and being kind of behind the 8 ball, we weren't able to generate much and then just get shut down tonight.
The Yankees haven't been below 500 all season long so far, so trying to avoid that later on today. That's your 2020 Sports Update. We'll be back in another 20 here on Wildcats Radio 1290.
Live from the CNWT.
Wait, what's the CNWT?
Central Northwest Tucson. Duh.
It's DK on the Sports Tip with your host, David Kelly.
Radio. Just when I thought I was out, they drug me back in.
Featuring J.W. Madden.
Don't tell me about flip-flops, man. I'm a native.
God Kelly.
Hour number 2 of the program, talking high school football. I'll correct myself because, I was looking at Max Preps and their information is never correct. No games tonight. No games tonight throughout the state. There are a couple of games tomorrow. Santan Charter will be one of the teams that will play tomorrow against Scottsdale Christian. Crown Point, New Mexico will host Valley Sanders tomorrow. So those are your 2 games tomorrow. Most everybody plays on Friday night in week 1, conferences 1A, 2A, 3A. We're going to be in Benson for Benson and Bisbee, the Pumas versus the Bobcats. It'll be the 56th meeting between those 2 teams. Nothing like starting out the season with a longtime rival. We are joined by Jeff Pichotta, JP the Wildman from AZ Sports Network. They do a fantastic job of covering conferences 1A, 2A, and 3A. They've got weekly rankings and all kinds of great information. I want to talk about Morenci. They've got my guy Richard Davis is back. here in Arizona. Won a state championship at Santa Cruz Valley Christian a few years back before going back to his home state of Alabama. First black coach to win a state championship in high school football here in the state of Arizona. So great to see Richard back taking over a Morenci program, which has been to the finals, although they lost the last 2 years. So he's stepping into a pretty good situation there.
Yeah, he does, and his name is Casillas. I watched the scrimmage. I went up to watch them against Bisbee, and if the 2 years, when he won state, the 1 year when he had Ogle, that's what you're going to see this year.
Mike Casillas, the running back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he almost was, he's a 2,000-yard rusher. And once again, Richard does a great job. He runs that hybrid single wing, and I'll tell you what, it's hard to figure out, and it's going to cause some problems even to the bigger schools. And it's just the same thing, and they're looking really tough. So
let's look at just kind of maybe going through some of these other rankings that you guys have here in terms of 2A. Tankerverde is ranked 17th. They've got a new head coach, Kirby Ballnow's boy. Jeff is going to be taking over that ball club that has been run the last few years by our great friend Jay Dobbins over there. Did Jay leave him a nice cupboard to potentially have a chance to compete?
Yeah, I think it's pretty good. Once again, though, to come in after Jay, I mean, that's a tough one right there. So, and here's the deal with them. They're lower just because, how many kids were they going to get out? Because when, a guy like Jay leaves, you just never know what's going to happen. So they're lower, but they start off against Phoenix Christian. And Phoenix Christian was in the mix of the teams that were moved up. And they went up there, had one good year, and then they didn't win a game last year. However, they're coming down to 2A, and they have some talent. So this is a game where people might be thinking, hey, Tankerverde could come up there and get an easy win. It's not going to be the case. If you notice, I think we have Phoenix Christian higher than Tankerverde for that reason. So,
JP the Wildman joining us from AZ Sports Network. JP, you coached, were head coach at a number of schools, Patagonia, Baba Kaviri, Santa Rita. I want to talk a little bit about Santa Rita because that program obviously will not compete on the varsity level this season. You coached there back in 2013, I believe it was, 2013 fall. What has happened to that program in the last 15 years since they went to back-to-back championships with Jeff Skurin?
Based on me being over at the school and everything, in 2012 and through that time frame, the TUSD wanted to shut them down. They wanted to sell the campus and get rid of it. See, a lot of people don't know this. When I see stories in the newspaper about it, I'm like crying out. You guys don't know the real story here. As I said before, I would be there in the morning, and Vail District would send their buses right in front of the school to take those kids. And that was a nice, firm community. So they didn't close it, but here's what they did. They shut down all the feeder programs. Carson Middle School that had a huge campus. All these kids that were just walking distance to Santa Rita, they're all gone. They're now going to another school, and our feeder system was gone. And so that was the start and the end of everything. We had, I had 70 players out, 3 teams competed. I had to step down because of my back and stuff. And then we had another good year the next year. After that, it just went down because all the kids started leaving because they saw the writing on the wall. No offense to other coaches. Some were coming in and trying to get those kids, like I told you before. The year I was there, we had 5 starters at Tucson High that had started for Santa Rita under Chris Hebner the year before. And they left. And one was Flanagan, who now, he plays in the pros now.
Demetrius Flanagan Fowles.
Yeah, Fowles. And that's where it all started. And then once that happened, the kids just started leaving. Then the enrollment went down because, once again, there's no feeder system. So those kids decided to go. Vail has really taken a lot of those East kids in that area. And that's basically what's happened. So once again, they try to come back and have Coach Sanchez, Hall of Fame Sanchez, great coach, come back. And he did a good job at least trying to get the kids interested again. But it just hasn't been able to get there as the enrollments went down. A lot of the talented kids have decided to go somewhere else. Or the other thing that plays into is eligibility. That was one of the things that we had to do when I was at Santa Rita, is to not have kids ineligible, really hit the books and stuff. And not that not all coaches do that, but we were very successful in not having one kid ineligible during our season. So you really have to hit that. At this point right now, in my opinion, two things really have to happen. They have to play this year a really good JV schedule and maybe even some 8-man games, because I don't know if you knew about this, that last year they petitioned to play 8-man football this year.
Yeah, right.
And they weren't allowed. Because right now, some of those Santa Rita kids that aren't playing the varsity schedule, they've transferred to other places. And so that's going to be a hardship case for, I think, Palo Verde has one of their running backs coming over there. So that's one of the things that they have to do this year. The second thing is, and I just feel like after all the top coaches they've tried to get over there, I think they should merge with Palo Verde. I really do. I think if they merge with Palo Verde, now Palo Verde is really up this year.
Merge the high schools or just merge the football team?
Just the football team. You can do that. St. Augustine, back when I was an interim coach for Patagonia, St. Augustine with the school, the school, what are they? The deaf school. I forget the.
The School of the Deaf.
School of the Deaf.
Yeah, mine.
They merged and formed a football team.
Oh wow!
Because they didn't have enough players, and so they did that for a year or two.
St. Augustine.
Yeah.
Oh wow!
And so they actually, because we played against when I was at Patagonia, so they could literally do that. Now here's the catch with that. That then puts both enrollment of the schools. So they probably wouldn't stay in 2A. They'd have to probably bump up to 3A. But now you're getting a lot more players, though, in my opinion. Back then, they had talked about merging the schools as well when I was there, but they didn't because there was such a rivalry with. You know better than.
That's. I mean, Santa Rita and Palo Verde. That is a rivalry. Let me tell you.
Exactly.
So is it the same situation? JP Wildman from AZ Sports Network is joining us talking high school football. Is it the same thing with Palo Verde, the feeder programs? Is that one of the reasons why they have fallen? I mean, you go back to the mid-aughts, both them and Santa Rita were state championship caliber programs. Now they are a shell of themselves. They didn't play in 2021, and now they've been back now for the last 2 years.
They did the right choice when they didn't play varsity that 1 year when they were still high. Remember, they were 4A.
Yeah.
And then they went down to 3A where they were in that brutal South, that we talked about with Sabino and all that group. And so for them to not play that year, I think it saved a lot. And plus they had underclassmen, so they didn't really miss out on a lot of seniors if they wanted to go play somewhere else. So that was huge for them. But now they're back up. They've got like 43 players this year, a lot of talent coming back for this year. They're actually one of those teams that I think we should keep an eye on, because if they can get that first win at Antelope, I think they're going to be rolling. Because don't forget, if you are pushed down for a lack of success, you get an easier schedule. So a lot of the games that they're going to play, besides their region, are going to be teams that they can be very competitive with. And so that's the real key right there for Palo Verde. And plus, they have a really good coach coming back, for 2 years.
Jamal Chapman, yep.
And Coach Davis is DC. You probably know Coach Smith.
Keith Smith, yeah.
He was under Skern for all those years, so he knows how to do it. And plus, they both also do track. And Palo Verde has had some speedsters there, so it's really helped them. And so really, I think Palo Verde's on the up. I think they really are. I think they've got something going over there. And all they needed was to skip that year so they don't get beat up and, lose more. And then now they're ready to roll. Plus they dropped down, which is really good. And their region's tough, but at least those freedom games is where they have to pick up wins. Because when you're, in my experience, I've dealt with a lot of the at-risk type schools that haven't won a lot. And the key for that is get your players to play, so more players. And the second thing is get some wins. No matter where you got to go, get some wins under your belt, because you can't control the region, but those freedom games are very important. And once again, they go to Antelope, who is a shell of itself from what they used to be. So that is, although I say if you go to Antelope, you're down 3 touchdowns. I played there before, believe me.
JP the Wildman joining us. Okay, give me your, if you want to prognosticate your 3 state champions for 1A, 2A, and 3A this season.
Ooh, everybody asks me about predict. I never do. What I do is we always say our rankings are the best.
Okay.
All we try to do is get, first of all, as many teams as we can from our preseason rankings to the top 16, and then whoever the final 4 teams are. So once again, I really feel good with, Sabino to be in there. Paradise Honors is another, who's going to face Thatcher. They're an up-and-coming team who last year had to go all the way to Sholo, and they got beat handily, although it was a high-scoring game, but, it was a different ball game. They have really scheduled some strong teams this year to be battle-tested, like you were talking about iron sharpens iron, and that's what they're doing because they're facing Thatcher. And I made a joke today because Obert had them at like number 8, and because they lost tons of kids. Yeah. It's kind of like St. David. And I told him, I said, I'll tell you what, Thatcher, even if they had just 9th grade team, they'd be in the top 5 all the time because they're just big boys down there, and they play it tough. So, I really don't give the who I think would win. I think for 8-man football, I don't know if people have mentioned it, but you got to keep a look at Mogollon again.
Yeah.
I mean, they're going to try to 4-peat. I mean, that's tough. I think that's historically in the state of Arizona. I don't know if it's been done before.
At any level?
At any level. That's what I'm saying.
Not even Chandler won 4 in a row?
Yeah, so I don't know about the bigger schools, but I know as far as 8-man, nobody's done it. Okay. So this is like history in the making. And once again, they just keep reloading. Now I have them at number 2 just because of Baghdad is bringing back like everybody, and they're loaded for bear this year. So it's a little bit different. So this
could be the year for Sabino.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think they have all the talent there. It's there. And once again, for me, it's always been with them defensively, but they're loaded there too. They have an excellent coaching staff. They have some really good DBs, so it's just going to be, can you stay healthy now going through that brutal South?
Yeah.
Because also, Sabino plays 2, I believe, 4A teams. They have this Saguaro they play, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's a
Every
rival.
Year, the rivalry.
That's a rival game. And I think they picked up another one. Is it Catalina Foothills, maybe? They've always played them, possibly.
Probably.
So, once again, they're playing a tough schedule. And I think for any of those teams, it comes down to...
Well, they play Micah Mountain. Micah Mountain's 4A,
Oh,
right?
okay, there you go. I mean, that's Coach Nugent over there. So,
oh, yeah. Boy.
And he has Coach Sanchez, coaching with him on the line, and so that team is ready to just explode, in my opinion. So those are they're playing a tough schedule.
Yeah,
got to stay healthy.
Man, that 3A South, it doesn't get any tougher than that, like you mentioned. JP, hey, we appreciate you taking some time to come into studio and join us. We'd love to have you back and talk some more high school football as the season goes along.
Sounds great.
All right,
enjoyed it.
JP, the Wildman from AZ Sports Network. Get on over and check out all of what they have. It's a terrific page. That's azsportsnetwork.net /FB as in football.